How many days does it take for a person to get used to killing? The moment you hear this question, something inside you tenses up, because the answer is more disturbing than you might think. Those who go to war are not monsters from fairy tales. They are 19-year-olds with dreams of college, who text their mothers, whose hands shake the first time they point a gun. The first bullet. Time slows down for a moment. Your heart pounds as if it will shatter your chest. A knot forms in your stomach. When your finger touches the trigger, the world splits into two, before and after. What does that after do to a person? They say war doesn't change people. But there is a small structure in the brain, about the size of an almond. The amygdala, our fear center, our alarm system. It kicks in when we sense danger. When a car suddenly brakes, when a dog runs toward you on the street, the amygdala speeds up the heart, releases adrenaline, and gives the fight or flight command. In war, however, this alarm never stops. Every shadow is a threat. Every sound is a potential death. Every movement is a risk. The first shot is not just a bullet. It is an indelible beginning etched into your mind. Electrical signals surge, triggering a chemical storm. Fear and survival intertwine. Empathy quietly recedes into the background. Emotions sharpen. Every movement is measured by its significance for survival. But humans are not alone in this slow and merciless process. Every reflex, every tremor, every blink is a test for the brain. So, how does a person change in this test? To understand this, one must first see the brain's dark and light circuits. Now the story of these young soldiers begins, not only in the shadow of war, but also in the silent battles raging within the mind. The biology of war, the brain's alarm system. It's not a scream, but a button pressed inside the brain. A small almond-shaped button, the amygdala. When a car suddenly hits the brakes, a dog runs towards you, or a glass breaks, that button is pressed. The body instantly goes on high alert, the heart races, breathing quickens, muscles tense. The fight or flight command is issued. In war, that button never turns off. Every shadow is a threat. Every sound is a possibility. Death. The amygdala keeps the alarm constantly on. The brain locks into high alert mode. This mode saves lives in the short term. But in the long term, the brain's internal wiring burns out. Let me tell you a story. In the first battle, a young man remembers his stomach knotting up as he fires his first shot. In the second battle, the knot is still there, but his body moves faster. In the third battle, his hands tremble, but his reflexes are sharper. This repetition is called habituation. With each repetition, the initial shock diminishes. The brain wants to conserve energy. Suppressing emotion and prioritizing reflexes seems smart. But this smart solution erodes the most fundamental parts of being human. The amygdala does not work alone. It conducts the stage with other instruments of an orchestra. The hippocampus, the reminder that ties memories to time. The prefrontal cortex, the chief of foresight and ethical judgment. The HPA axis, the chemical factory that activates hormones. When an attack begins, the hypothalamus sounds the alarm, the pituitary gland responds. The adrenal gland pumps out cortisol and adrenaline. In an instant, the body is flooded with chemicals that put it into fight mode. This chemical storm works for a short time. Quick decisions, sudden strength, sharp alertness. If it continues for a long time, the price is heavy. If cortisol remains constantly high, the hippocampus can shrink. Memory becomes confused. The sequence of events is erased. Memory fragments. A door slamming can bring the entire past rushing back in an instant, a flashback. Time becomes singular. The past becomes the present. When the context of memories is lost, empathy also slips away. Others' stories are overshadowed by the danger of the moment. The prefrontal cortex works slowly, yet war demands quick decisions. Long-term planning and ethical questioning recede. Reflexes come to the fore. Thinking becomes a luxury. This neurobiological reorganization contributes to the soldier's survival. But problems begin when they return home. The silence at home becomes an unnoticeable enemy. While waiting in line at the supermarket, you check behind you. A child's sudden movement causes panic. The rule your brain has learned is, stay alert, stay alive. Another aspect of this adaptation is desensitization. Repeated violence diminishes emotional response. The revulsion at the first bullet diminishes. Empathy is gradually pushed into the background. People are divided into categories, us and them. Faces become targets. This process is not moral decay, it is a survival strategy. But when returning to society, the same mechanism damages relationships, love, and trust. And then a crisis emerges, defined by a single word: PTSD. This is more than just a label. It is the result of the brain's wiring being rewired. Flashbacks, sleep disorders, intense fear, and states of hypervigilance all come together. It must be said that PTSD is not a shameful weakness. It is a scientific outcome. Chronic stress repeatedly changes the brain, but the story isn't all dark. The word neuroplasticity also carries hope. The brain is a learning organ. If bad connections are formed, new ones can be formed too. Therapy, secure relationships, regular sleep, proper nutrition, physical activity, all are tools for biological repair. Exposure therapies, EMDR, cognitive behavioral interventions, all help to reframe memory and emotion. The voice of the prefrontal cortex can be re-empowered, the amygdala can calm down. To summarize in a few words, war changes the brain's accounting. Every time the alarm sounds, every time hormones surge, you gain something, the ability to survive, and you sacrifice something, some human sensitivities. That is the trade-off. Muting some notes of emotion in order to live. There are 3 things to remember at the end of this section. When the amygdala is triggered, the body immediately springs into action. This is the first step towards survival. Chronic alarm and hormonal storms strain the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. Memories fragment, ethical questioning weakens. Change is not one way. Repair is possible thanks to neuroplasticity. But it requires trust, time, and science. War turns the brain into an alarm center. This alarm sometimes acts as a guard. Sometimes it leads to imprisonment. Humans reorganize themselves to ward off death. The hardest test is learning to be human again. When the first danger strikes, your brain hits the alarm button. The amygdala trembles, your heart races, your breathing quickens. This small, almond-shaped center is the commander of fear, danger, and survival. When a dog barks, a gunshot is heard, or a shadow falls over you, that button is activated. The body is instantly ready, muscles tense, adrenaline surges, reflexes kick in. In war, that button never turns off. Every shadow is a threat, every sound carries the possibility of death. The brain locks into high alert mode. This mode saves lives in the short term. In the long term, however, nerves fray, the body tires, the spirit grows heavy. At the first shot, hands tremble, a knot forms in the stomach. The heart pounds, as if tearing the chest apart. In the second clash, it is still fast. In the third, the body moves more clearly. This repetition is called desensitization. As it repeats, fear diminishes, reflexes take over. Empathy is gradually pushed into the background. The amygdala does not work alone. Like an orchestra, it coordinates with other regions. The hippocampus anchors experiences in time and space. The prefrontal cortex enables ethical reasoning. The HPA axis activates hormones, pumping out adrenaline and cortisol. When an attack begins, hormones surge like a storm, sharp attention, quick reflexes, sudden strength. But if this chemical storm persists, the toll is heavy. The hippocampus shrinks, memory becomes confused, memories fragment. The past seeps into the present, flashbacks, unexpected sounds, lights, and smells suddenly bring the entire past back to life. The brain develops an adaptation mechanism in war. When danger is constant, there is no room for empathy. Human faces now appear as targets, emotions are suppressed. This is not a moral collapse, it is a survival strategy. The prefrontal cortex recedes, reflexes come to the fore. Thinking becomes a luxury. The brain conserves energy. Curtailing empathy enables quick decision-making. But this adaptation creates problems when returning home. Silence replaces the explosions at the front. Crowds become potential attacks. The brain remains on high alert. Survive. The rule it has learned is the shadow of the old alarm. This is the most invisible, most silent trace of war. The ongoing fronts within the nervous system. This is where neuroplasticity comes into play. The brain can change, it can rewire itself. The amygdala can calm down, the prefrontal cortex can strengthen. Empathy can return. Therapy, secure relationships, sleep, nutrition, and physical activity are tools for biological repair. Exposure therapies, EMDR, and cognitive behavioral methods reconnect memory and emotion. The brain can lay new wiring against learned fear. It can relearn compassion and trust. This change is not rapid. The first step is rebuilding trust. A small ritual, a conversation, a smile. But that same brain also holds the potential for healing and compassion. Humans carry both possibilities within them. Which circuit strengthens depends on the world they are exposed to. Neuroplasticity is not just a mechanism, it is an instrument of hope. Empathy can be relearned. As emotions are named, they recede, and new connections are formed. The brain changes with experience and support. War's dark potential can emerge, but healing is also possible. Humans are not prisoners of their biology. They can also reshape it. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. These names echo not only on maps, but in the eyes, souls, and minds of veterans. War begins on the front lines, but it continues in cities, on streets, amid uncertainty, intertwined with civilians. Every corner is a potential threat, every shadow a possible death. A Vietnam veteran recounts, "After 6 months, you don't think anymore, you just react." In the first battle, your hands tremble, your heart races. In the third battle, it's still fast, but your body moves more clearly. The brain learns this. It's called desensitization. Fear diminishes, reflexes take over, empathy is pushed into the background. Empathy doesn't disappear, it's silenced. The brain conserves energy, the prefrontal cortex recedes, logic and long-term thinking diminish. Reflexes come to the fore. It enables quick decisions. Thinking becomes a luxury. But when you return home, this strategy creates problems. Silence feels like an explosion. A crowd feels like an attack. The brain is still on high alert. Survive. Research shows that prolonged danger wears down the hippocampus. Memory deteriorates, memories fragment. Flashbacks, unexpected sounds, lights, and smells bring the past into the present. If the brain cannot connect experiences to time and place, the past is constantly remembered and peace is lost. Iraq and Afghanistan veterans describe a different scenario. There is no front line. Danger is everywhere. Civilians, soldiers, children. Every movement, every glance is a risk. Uncertainty is the greatest source of stress for the brain. Sleep is disrupted, emotions become numb, empathy diminishes. Being constantly on alert overworks the nervous system. But human biology also carries hope. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, also applies to healing. Therapy, secure relationships, social support, sleep, and physical activity can reshape the brain. The amygdala calms down, the prefrontal cortex strengthens, empathy returns. The brain lays new neural pathways against learned fear. It can become accustomed to compassion and trust. Empathy can be relearned. Small rituals, a smile, a conversation, enable the brain to forge new pathways. Memories integrate, the weight of the past diminishes. The brain repairs broken lines and draws new patterns. Humans are not prisoners of their biology, they can also reshape it. War reveals biological and psychological limits. Recovery reveals humanity's deepest resilience. Veterans' stories teach us that even when empathy seems lost, it can be restored with the right support. The choice between survival and remaining human is the starting point for rebuilding. And perhaps the most striking truth is this: war is not only fought on the battlefield, the mind, memories, and dreams also form a battlefield in homes, cities, and our minds. But the same mind also carries the potential for healing and compassion. Humans carry both possibilities. Which one gains strength depends on their environment, support, and experience. The process of adjustment and the emotional cost. In the first confrontation, hands tremble, the heart pounds as if it will burst from the chest. Time slows down. Every second weighs heavily upon you. When the brain encounters this intensity for the first time, it sounds the alarm. The amygdala is on high alert. The prefrontal cortex is withdrawn. Reflexes take precedence. Every shadow is a threat. Every sound a potential death sentence. In the second conflict, tremors are still present, but slightly less so. The brain begins to learn the danger. This is biology's survival strategy, habituation. In the third, fourth, and 10th conflicts, the body becomes automatic. The heart is still racing, but reflexes become more pronounced. Emotional intensity decreases. Empathy is pushed into the background. The brain labels the danger as the new normal. This is not a moral collapse, it is an adaptation. But the price is heavy. The war ends, the guns fall silent, the sound of cannons ceases. But the mind is still on high alert. Noise comes like an explosion, creating a sense of mass attack. Because the alarm is constantly ringing, the nervous system is still in high alert mode. Sleep is disrupted, emotions become numb, memory fragments. The hippocampus is worn out, the prefrontal cortex is suppressed, the amygdala is hypersensitive. The brain continues to function with learned fear. Getting used to peace is much harder than getting used to war. Every simple movement reawakens the brain's alert circuitry. Humans are forced to continue the survival strategy developed to stay alive, in a world that is now safe. This is where neuroplasticity comes into play. The brain can rewire itself, reflexes can slow down, empathy can return. But the process is slow. Each step is small but permanent. Here lies the true cost of war, getting used to it, not just to killing, but to fear as well. And returning to peace requires at least as much courage as war itself. Humans are not slaves to their biology, but they cannot ignore it either. War leaves its mark on both mind and body. Empathy diminishes, trust is wounded, but it can be relearned. Every small ritual, every secure relationship allows the brain to forge new pathways. Ultimately, humans carry two possibilities within them. On one side, the reflexes of war. On the other, the paths of healing and compassion. Which one grows stronger is determined by support, time, and experience. War reveals the dark potential of the brain, but that same brain also carries the potential for mercy and trust. The process of adjustment is difficult and painful, but healing is possible. The brain may be damaged, but it is also a repairer. Neuroplasticity, like an invisible carpenter, opens new pathways and rewires circuits. The amygdala, constantly sounding the alarm, slows down. The prefrontal cortex regains strength, logic takes over, and empathy resurfaces. Therapy is not just talking. It's a helping hand, rewiring the brain. EMDR smooths out the sharp edges of past traumas. CBT reshapes thought patterns. Social support, a safe environment, and small rituals allow the brain to lay new neural pathways. Healing is a process. Rebuilding trust is the first step. Memories are ordered, pieces put together. Emotions named. Pain becomes manageable. Simple things make a difference. A cup of tea, a conversation, a smile. Every step is the brain relearning, every ritual a bridge. The brain can replace familiar fear. Reflexes slow with patience and attention. Empathy returns in small but genuine steps. Society plays a significant role. A listening ear and non-judgmental space rebuild trust. Healing, though individual, is a collective effort. Over time, night becomes less frightening, mornings anticipated. The inner guard is less alert, no longer seeing the world as an alarm. Pain transforms into survival's story. Memory teaches lessons. The mind breaks, but also heals. Broken lines draw new patterns, carrying hope. War's scars may never fade, but they change shape. Pain becomes controllable. Humans aren't slaves to biology, but must understand it. The war-tested brain holds great healing potential. Every small step, every secure relationship, every ritual allows the brain to forge new pathways. Recovery is built with patience, trust, and love. Every reconnection, every step is a rewriting of the mind and spirit. Hope blossoms even in the most fragile moments. The same mind carries both pain and compassion. Humans can learn again, to trust, to love, to empathize. War does not only affect soldiers, it takes over cities, streets, homes, minds, and souls. The sound of conflict echoes everywhere. Silent streets, cracked walls, empty stares. These are the silent witnesses of war. Empathy is tested here. When danger is constant, the brain's survival circuits block empathy. The amygdala sounds the alarm. Prefrontal cortex withdraws. Reflexes take over. Humans are forced to choose empathy or reflex. This is not an individual battle, it is a social obligation. If society fails to understand those who return, the burden becomes heavier. Soldiers return, distant loneliness in their eyes. Children, spouses, friends, all witness this change. Traces of war are visible in relationships and social bonds. People grow distant, silence grows. But there is hope. Empathy can be relearned. The brain learns from experience and changes. Social support, safe spaces, a non-judgmental listening ear, small rituals, each allows the brain to lay new neural pathways. Society's role is significant. It must not abandon individuals, must support every step. Healing takes patience. Small steps matter. A cup of tea, a conversation, a smile. These reopen the brain's complex circuits. Memories fall into place, pieces come together. As emotions are named, they recede. Pain transforms into a manageable force. The shadow of war can linger, but social bonds are the most powerful tools for healing. Empathy is a social force. It is relearned in communities built together. The void left by war can only be filled with trust and understanding. Humans can both break and reconnect. War is not only fought on the battlefield, it continues in our minds, memories, dreams, and silent silences. But the same brain that adapts to fear can also adapt to trust. Just as it adapts to violence, it can also adapt to compassion. Society makes this transformation possible. Rebuilding empathy, trust, and love takes time. Every step, every ritual, every non-judgmental listener builds a bridge. As bridges are built, broken lines draw new patterns. The sky appears wider, steps become longer, thoughts grow calmer. The scars of war may not fade, but they transform. Humans can turn everything they experience into the norm, but they cannot do this alone. Society, with understanding and support, allows the individual to rewrite their mind. And the rewritten mind can be filled once more with compassion, love, and hope. When the war ends, the guns fall silent, but the human mind remains on high alert. Every shadow seems like a threat. Every sudden movement makes the heart leap. Sounds still echo. The amygdala, the center of fear, is activated. The prefrontal cortex recedes. Reflexes come to the fore. The brain makes a choice, survival or empathy. This decision affects not only soldiers but also society, because war opens a silent front in every individual's mind. Empathy dulls, but it does not disappear completely. When constantly exposed to stimuli, the brain reduces emotional responses. This is habituation. The first time you flinch. The 10th time, reactions diminish. The 100th time, your body becomes automatic. The brain conserves energy. It prioritizes survival. But the cost of this adaptation is heavy. Sleep is disrupted, emotions become numb, distance grows between loved ones. The hippocampus, the organizer of memory, wears down. Memories fragment, past and present intertwine. Flashbacks occur. The shadow of war lingers, but there is hope. The brain learns from experience and reshapes itself. Social support, safe spaces, a non-judgmental listening ear, small rituals. These allow the brain to rewire itself. Empathy can be relearned. Trust can be rebuilt. Recovery requires patience. Small steps are important. A cup of tea, a conversation, a smile, a recurring ritual. These open new pathways. Memories fall into place. Pieces come together. As emotions are named, they recede. Pain transforms into a manageable force. Society plays a major role. It is necessary not to leave people alone, to support every step, to rebuild trust. Empathy is not an individual feeling, but a social tool. It is relearned and built together in communities. The void left by war can only be filled with trust and understanding. War is not only fought on the battlefield. War continues in our minds, in our memories, in our dreams. in the silent silences. But the same brain that adapts to fear can also adapt to trust. Just as it adapts to violence, it can also adapt to compassion. Humans can both break and reconnect. Broken lines draw new patterns, the sky appears wider, steps become longer, thoughts grow calmer. The scars of war may never fade, but they transform. And in the end, humans can turn everything they've learned into the new normal. If they're not alone, if they have support. The brain carries both possibilities, violence and compassion. Which one becomes stronger depends on the world it is exposed to. War reveals the brain's dark potential, but the same brain also carries healing and compassion. Humans are shaped not by what they experience, but by the world that is shown to them. And the answer to the question lies within the question itself. How many years will it take for humans to return to peace? Perhaps there is no number. Perhaps the issue is what the brain is exposed to. There is only one thing we know for sure: the brain changes, and it can change again.